Have you ever felt trapped? Pinned between a rock and a hard place with no way out? It's a feeling we all know. But what if I told you about a time when an entire nation faced an impossible situation, trapped between a raging sea and a powerful, vengeful army? This is the story of Moses, a story of incredible faith and a miracle that defied all logic. It's a story that shows us that even when we see no way forward, a path can be made. Let's rewind the clock over 3,000 years. The Israelites, after generations of harsh slavery in Egypt, were finally free. Led by a man named Moses, they journeyed into the vast, unforgiving desert, heading towards a promised land. Their hearts were filled with hope, a hope that had been passed down through generations. Freedom was no longer a distant dream. It was the dusty ground beneath their feet, the open sky above their heads. But their journey was far from over, and their greatest test was just around the corner. Back in Egypt, Pharaoh was having second thoughts. The loss of his entire enslaved workforce was a massive blow to his empire and his pride. Consumed by rage and regret, he rallied his army, the most formidable fighting force of its time. Imagine hundreds of chariots, the pride of the Egyptian military, thundering across the sand, kicking up a storm of dust and fury. Their target? The fleeing Israelites. Pharaoh wasn't just coming to recapture them, he was coming for revenge. Meanwhile, the Israelites had reached the edge of the Red Sea. In front of them, a vast, impassable body of water. Behind them, the terrifying sound of approaching horses and the glint of bronze in the sun. Panic swept through the crowd like a wildfire. They were trapped. The joy of freedom quickly turned to terror. They cried out to Moses, their voices filled with fear and accusation. Was it because there were no graves in Egypt that you brought us to the desert to die? It would have been better for us to serve the Egyptians than to die in the wilderness. Can you imagine the pressure on Moses at that moment? The people he led were on the brink of revolt, their faith crumbling. The enemy was closing in, and a watery grave seemed to be their only escape. In this moment of extreme crisis, Moses didn't panic. He stood firm, his own faith a beacon in the storm of fear. He turned to the terrified people and spoke words that would echo through history. Do not be afraid, stand firm, and you will see the deliverance the Lord will bring you today. The Egyptians you see today, you will never see again. The Lord will fight for you. You need only to be still. Imagine the courage it took to say that, to tell millions of terrified people to just be still while a deadly army was breathing down their necks. But Moses' faith wasn't in his own ability. It was in a power far greater. Then God instructed Moses, "Raise your staff and stretch out your hand over the sea to divide the water so that the Israelites can go through the sea on dry ground." It was a command that defied everything known to man. Part the sea with a staff. It must have sounded insane, but Moses obeyed. He raised his simple wooden staff and stretched his hand out over the churning waters of the Red Sea. What happened next is one of the most spectacular miracles ever recorded. A mighty east wind began to blow. It didn't just push the water back a little, it blew all through the night, a relentless, powerful force that drove the sea apart. The water piled up like walls on either side, creating a wide, dry path right through the middle of the sea. The seabed, once a murky, hidden world, was now a highway of salvation. As dawn broke, the Israelites, in stunned silence, began their march. They walked between two towering walls of water, the ground firm beneath their feet. Men, women, children, and their livestock walked through the heart of the sea. They were walking on a path that didn't exist minutes before, a path literally created for them in their moment of greatest need. It wasn't a muddy, sloppy mess. The Bible says it was dry ground, an impossible escape route made possible. When the last of the Israelites reached the other side, the Egyptian army was in hot pursuit. They didn't hesitate. Blinded by their arrogance, they charged into the same path, their chariots thundering down onto the seabed. They thought they had their prey cornered. But their path was not one of salvation. It was a trap. Once the entire army was inside the corridor of water, God gave Moses another command. Stretch out your hand over the sea so that the waters may flow back over the Egyptians and their chariots and horsemen. Moses, standing safely on the far shore, stretched out his hand once more. The moment he did, the watery walls collapsed. The sea roared back to its natural state with incredible force, a torrential flood that consumed Pharaoh's entire army. The chariots, the horsemen, the pride of Egypt, all were swallowed by the sea. The very thing the Israelites feared would be their end became their ultimate protection. When the sun rose higher that morning, the Israelites looked back and saw the bodies of their former masters washed up on the shore. They were truly, finally free. Their oppressors were gone, defeated not by an army, but by the hand of God. The people were overcome with awe and gratitude. Their fear turned into jubilant praise. They saw the great power the Lord had displayed, and their faith was renewed, not just in God, but also in his servant, Moses. Miriam, Moses' sister, led the women in a song of victory, dancing and singing, "Sing to the Lord, for he is highly exalted. Both horse and driver he has hurled into the sea." It was a moment of pure, unadulterated joy and relief. This story is more than just an ancient tale. It's a powerful metaphor for our own lives. How many times do we face our own Red Sea, a situation that seems utterly impossible? It could be a financial crisis, a health diagnosis, a broken relationship, or a career dead end. We feel trapped, with an army of problems chasing us from behind and an impassable sea of obstacles in front of us. In those moments, it's so easy to panic, to despair, and to think there's no way out. The lesson from Moses and the Red Sea is to be still and trust that a way will be made, even when we can't see it. It is about having the courage to stand firm in our faith when everything around us is screaming, impossible. It teaches us that sometimes our greatest breakthroughs come when we are at our most desperate, when we finally let go and allow a higher power to work. The path forward might not be the one we expect, but it will appear when we need it most. Just like the Israelites, we might have to walk through a scary place, with walls of uncertainty on either side, but that path leads to freedom. So the next time you feel trapped, remember the story of the Red Sea. Remember the courage of Moses and the faith of a nation. Hold on to the hope that your impossible situation is not the end of your story. Stand firm, be still, and watch as a way is made for you right through the middle of your sea. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey back in time. If this story moved you or gave you a little bit of hope today, I'd be so grateful if you'd hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more stories of faith and inspiration. Share this video with someone who might need to hear it. Until next time, stay strong and keep the faith.